Okay, my friends, get ready. This is going to be quite serious. We're going to be talking about all the volcanoes and all the seismic activity that's happening around the world right now, and it is extensive. We're going to start with Mount Spurr because that's being investigated very closely. It's right next to Anchorage, and it is about to pop. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to pop virtually any day now. That's my prediction. Okay, this is the statistics on Spurr and how much it's active. This is earthquakes per week. It was down here, it was almost nothing, 2023, 2023, 2024, building up a little bit. And look at this. This is within the last couple of days. This is just this year, within the last couple of days. It's really rocketing up. And I believe it's ready to pop. Okay, this is just today. Earthquake under Alaskan volcano could be sign it's about to erupt. Mount Spurr in Alaska, rising 11,000 feet above sea level, could be about to erupt with a number of small and recent earthquakes in the area now into the thousands, which means it's just getting ready to pop. Okay, my friends, right up front, the shocker du jour. This is the human anatomy of the basically respiratory system, the heart, the lungs, the thyroid, out through the mouth, the tongue, all that business. Well, I'm going to tell you what, if this was a gigantic, enormous creature, died lying down like this would turn into a melt situation, and all of this heavy-duty biology, which has a lot of blood, will turn into a festering, explosive concoction. And there'll be different types of melt here versus this and up in here. I'll show you where it's happening, and it's happening right now at Yellowstone. This is Yellowstone. All right, they just did a survey of Yellowstone. This is what they found. Now don't forget, we got two lungs, a heart, a couple other little jobbers going on here, and out through the mouth. This is identical, and I'm not talking close, I'm talking identical. And it has different types of tissue here. Your lung tissue is much different than your trachea and so forth, and your heart. Your heart is just a ball of blood. So is your lungs, but your lungs have a lot of structure to them. And they just, look at this. There's your heart and so forth right in here and right up through the mouth, and here's where the caldera is, where it's releasing the heat. You see this? This is like wraps right around your neck, your tonsils or something. And this is right up through your mouth. All of that heat is being able to be released. Therefore, I don't believe that Yellowstone will erupt because it has a source of relief for the heat. Now, don't forget I told you there's going to be different melt. Well, here it is right here. The yellow is called basaltic melt, and that's because it's got a lot of collagens and keragens and fibers that we're doing this all the time. Now, this is rhyolithic melt, which is the red. That has a different chemistry to it because it's a different part of the body, and primarily it's more bloody and so forth. Well, these are really bloody too, but there's a lot of tissue to go along with this. Basalt it has a lot of structure to it. Hearts and so forth, they don't have a lot of structure internally. On the outside they do, but they leak their blood out, so this is just blobs of blood. Let's put it that way. Let's just go back to the body again. You see, you got a blob here, you got a blob here, you got two lungs, which are different than this, and so forth. They're coming right up here, and then you're going to have in the inside of, that's where, I don't know, the blood collected around the side of the neck, and then the caldera blows out at the top. There really is no difference that I can see. If you can, I'd like to know what it is. All right, you see the two, they come together. And this is a little bit different than this, and then the caldera. So you got basalt, you got rhyolithic material, the red stuff. Then you got the transition where the two of them come together. It's just, It's as simple as it can't even be any more simple. And then you got the hydrothermal system, which is up here, that lets off the heat. Hydrothermal. Watery, bubbling, out it goes, the heat. Otherwise, it builds up. Spurr is building up now more than it even should. There's no gases coming out to speak of that I have seen. And if you don't have that gaseous expulsion, like some heat giving off and a little bubbling coming up, there's a plug. You're plugged up in there. And that is when it becomes explosive. And I believe that's the case of Spurr right now. This is why Yellowstone is not exploding, because all the heat is coming out of here. It's allowing itself to bubble itself out. Otherwise, if that was capped off, what do you think is going to happen? It's obviously heat builds up and all of a sudden you get an explosion. When you have biological material, it becomes combustive. Hydrocarbons, which are explosive, and that's why they burn and bubble and all that stuff, and you get gigantic explosions. The expansion is just absolutely enormous. When you take meat and you let it rot, it blows up like a balloon because it's giving off all these gases. The Earth now is warming up so much that the biology that is part of the Earth is starting to really heat and get bubbling up, just like you left your freezer door open. And all that stuff was frozen. It's nice and solid. It just never changed hardly. All of a sudden now it's festering. And that's what we're seeing everywhere on Earth. I've been checking all over the volcanoes everywhere. Santorini, Ethiopia is about ready to pop, and that one's going to be serious too. Santorini, I think, is going to be serious. They're all going to be serious. And they're not taking into account the increased amount of energy that the Earth has absorbed. It can't absorb anymore. It's supposed to suck up all these extra electrons and particles, and it just has so many on the surface that it doesn't want anymore. It's just like you take anything and you force heat into it at a certain point, it just won't take anymore. It doesn't want anymore. There's too much heat in it. And that's what's going on with our Earth right now. And there's so much that's not understood because they won't delve into this realm of reality, which it sounds insane. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is a lung as well. That is a lung from some gigantic creature. And all of these little transition metal pools are also, this is a lung as well. I see little inlets and all that. It feeds all of that air through that lung. This would be just like that. And then when it died, all the metals remained in here. These are all metals. Those are all, they say, oh, no, this is just bacteria. Yes, living on the metals. The bacteria process metals. That's what they do. All right, I want you to look at this and be thinking about what I'm going to read you in a second. You see all these different colors and all these different little holes? I say that is from a lung. And this hole right here is probably that hole. And you come up to these other spots and so forth. That is a lung in my estimation, and these are all different pools of bacteria. Bacteria lives in our blood. It loves our blood. Purple, green, all these, but there's all kinds of colors. I'm going to read what it says in a second. And don't forget, these are the transition metals. These cause all kinds of different colors, and I mean spectacular amounts of different colors, not just those. And this is another lung, and you see all of these little pools are different types of bacteria, and a different type of bacteria make a different type of color. And here's what it says about bacteria. It says, I asked if the bacterial communities create different colors and how many colors are there. And it says, yes, bacterial communities indeed create different colors. Bacteria produce a variety of pigments meaning these transition metals basically, that give them their characteristic colors. The pigments are often linked to their metabolic processes in the body. Environmental factors or the specific species. Well, it's always the specific species, but it has to have a specific blood to work with, basically. The pigments can create vibrant colors in microbial colonies, which are visible in laboratory cultures or in nature. So when they see them in lab, they see them just about like this, in a puddle. They grow in their little spots. If you put a whole batch of different little holes, if you put something like this, on a table, and it was flat, and you just flushed it with all these different metals and colors and bacteria, they would find places to grow, and they would settle in their own little communities. That's why you have these vibrant colors separated by tissue between them. This is just nothing more than tissue. Yeah. All right. So what I'm saying is this brown stuff is nothing more than this brown stuff. And these holes are nothing more than these holes. This is in an area where there's a lot of moisture, so it's like saturated below, and then the colonies of bacteria grew into their own little colors, and I mean spectacular colors. And they say they know, they understand this. You can see this in a laboratory. This is not a mystery. All right, let's address the reason for explosions on, volcanoes. Why do they explode? Why don't they just sort of lay there and just be like all the rest of the dirt and so forth? Well, it's because of the iron in the blood. It's because of blood, literally because of blood. It creates these expansion gases. And you say, well, how does that happen? Well, I'll show you how it happens. You have to understand a little bit of chemistry. Here's the anatomy. Here's the chemistry. This is what blood is. Primarily, it's iron. And it's surrounded by nitrogen hooked into all these hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are what burns. Hydrocarbons. You burn those. All right, and it's attached to oxygens and hydrogens over here. So you got a combustive mix here. And normally if it's stable, it's cold enough, you're not pushing extra electrons in, so you don't get that expansion. Once you warm it up, and warming up just means you're adding electrons. Dipole electrons are flooding in here. And they're making that expand, and then all of a sudden it starts to combust. The oxygens, I'm not exactly sure how that actually does happen, to be perfectly honest with you, but I do know it's spontaneous combustion. The hydrogens, the oxygens, the carbon dioxide, it's primarily the hydrocarbons and the oxygens. Off it goes. If you compress that and you don't allow it to expand, it's going to be just more and more explosive. And right now, that's what's happening up at Mount Spurr. It is getting very explosive. All right, I think I talked about this, and I got interrupted a couple times. But anyway, they're talking about all this nitrogen being released during these volcanoes, and they think that this nitrogen is good for growing things. And it frees up the nitrogen gas to form nitrogen-containing molecules living things can use. So they think this is it's just sparking something in the atmosphere, changing the atmosphere. But no, it's changing from blood into nitrogen, and that blood is right here, iron. And there's all the nitrogens. When this thing explodes, everything frees up. The nitrogen goes in explosions, and you get free nitrogen out of this, not sparking up into the atmosphere. There's a lot we have to learn. All right, the next video I'm going to go through all the different volcanoes around the world, and not all of them, but a lot of them that are very active right now. Now, this was very helpful because basaltic melt is down here in the lungs. That means there's a lot of kerogen, a lot of keratin, a lot of gooey stuff down in here, a lot of fascia, a lot of fibers, plagioclases and all that stuff, I think. But anyway, this is basalt, is a type of rock. Then you go to rhyolithic melt, which is up here, which does not have this same materials. This is rubbery. That's rigid. So the chemistry is different. And then you have a transition between the two of them working against sort of melting. All of this is melt, rhyolithic melt, basaltic to rhyolithic melt. Then the hydrothermal lets out the stuff up here. So this was helpful to me to see what the lungs are made out of versus the trachea and so forth. And these are the heart in that area, I believe. I can't see any difference whatsoever. None. Here's the lungs, here's your heart, it comes right up here. And of course, this is a fibrous. The trachea is totally different than the lungs, which have to do this all the time. And the heart is just flush with blood. So the earth is biological. There were giants in the earth in those days. These are those giants that are in the earth. And then after that, there was more giants, which I have here. Mine are DNA tested and CAT scan and everything else. They were little compared to these things. I mean, just think of the size of this. When I show you Vermilion Cliffs and stuff, it's mind-blowing. Not only that, this right here, that's an optic nerve. That's an optic nerve from the eye of the Sahara. I'm not kidding you. That's the optic nerve. Now, we're going to get deep into all of this stuff. Mount Spurr is ready to go, and I think it's going to be kind of serious. I think they should prepare for a serious event. We'll look at it over in the next video, but I have been looking it over, and it does not look good. There's Mount Spurr right there. All right, and that flows right down through here. Comes around, and comes around the bend she comes. All this is brown poop. That literally is poop. I don't know if you can say it isn't. I don't know how you'd say that. Is that every time it poops? I don't know. And this is some more. You know, things run together here. You got 3 different mixtures coming together here, but the whole thing is a cloaca. When you take this, which is the poop side, and you take this, which is the fluid side, you see up here it has the sphincter muscles and all that, and it has some kind of reabsorptive gland right there, whatever, and it all comes down, and it can get pinched off so it doesn't drip, and it comes down into a cloaca, and that cloaca comes down into Cook Inlet, which is right here. Now, if you want to come back, if you're interested in seeing what this whole system is designed around and built, it's biology that is just hard to believe, but it is what it is. If it's true, it's true, it's true. And this whole area up here, I can show you all these different colors, as I was just showing you, different bacteria living in different areas because there's different chemistry and different biology going on. That's all I have to say about that for right now. The next video, we're going to look in and see how bad it could be. I mean, I can't predict that. I just don't know. But I would be prepared for the worst, because this is now warming up under here. That's why we're seeing all this green. No, you know, it's warming up. And this is still kind of capped off solid, I believe, and underneath it's getting less solid. The more heat gets absorbed, the more fluidy it becomes. The tundras collapse and the little green mice are running around, those little balls that are the interstitium balls I showed hundreds of times. They don't understand it, and they will not understand it until they at least look at this, and then they say, well, Roger, that doesn't make sense because of da-da-da-da-da. And I will say, well, it makes sense because of da-da-da-da-da-da-da, because I got more da-da-das than they got. So let's do this the next time around. But all I can say is the warming of the earth, and I don't think is reversible. You know, you're going to have to be prepared for the worst, and because the worst is just starting to come. We're seeing a lot of catastrophes worldwide. The weather's changed. You don't be silly about saying, "Oh, there's no climate change." No. There's absolutely climate change, and it is warming up, and as it does, and it's just a natural effect. We're absorbing electrons from the sun. They don't just bounce off and go out and back into space. Maybe some, a little bit, but not a lot. They're being crushed into the earth by the earth spinning through space in the soup of space. All of this stuff has to be re-examined, and it has to be in a broad spectrum, not just, oh, I can see one little volcano and that's all I do. I don't know anything about anything else. No, you have to know everything about everything else. The chemistry, the biology, the anatomy, the history, the gases, the expansion, global warming, what the sun gives off, top to bottom. If you don't understand top to bottom. You don't understand anything. Then you just wait for somebody else to tell you something. I say learn it for yourself, because it's not hard to learn. I just showed you so much in this little short time. You should be able to learn this stuff. It's not a big deal. And as a matter of fact, right here, you see out there, nobody understands this. Way out here, it's over 1,500 degrees Celsius. That's like, I don't know, 2,700 degrees. That's hotter than hell. And that's what they would call a firmament, which is scrubs all the particles in space, where the space station is. As we spin through space, that is the scrub zone. And it gets hotter than hell here. And because everything's a dipole, it gets colder than cold here. And it's getting hotter here, and it's getting colder here. And we're getting minus 80 degrees Celsius. That's 112 below zero. So we got thousands of degrees difference between these two layers. And then it gets warm again. The hotter it gets here, the colder it gets here. The colder it gets here, the hotter it gets here, where we are. And that's what's happening right now. And this layer is getting hotter and hotter. And this layer is getting colder and colder. And that's why you get gigantic chunks of ice coming out of the sky, and hail this big around. It's going to get bigger and bigger. They'll get into basketball size before long. This is going to be the frozen zone. Years ago, they used to, people talk about an ice wall. Well, maybe that could become an ice wall. I don't know. The hotter it gets here, the colder it's going to get there. And as more moisture builds up here, they call it a vapor canopy. Well, that vapor canopy could turn into a solid ice dome. I don't know. Right now, there's a lot of stuff up in the air. And there's a lot of heat down here. And that is not good. I just got this from a friend of mine. This is the Chinese AI DeepSeek. And he put in, what if Roger Spurr's right about mud fossil theory, And it says, if Spurr's mud fossil theory were proven correct, it would have profound implications across multiple fields of science and society. I mean, literally everything would change. Everything you were taught about our ancient past has to be reevaluated. Now, revolution in geology and paleontology. Reinterpretation of Earth's history, yeah. New approaches to fossil studies, absolutely. Impact on resource exploration, no question whatsoever. Challenges to evolutionary biology, that's just silly. Reimagining life on Earth, extinction events, impact on archaeology and anthropology, human history revisited, cultural religious implications, scientific paradigm shift, total. Dipole electron flood theory changes everything. Reevaluation of scientific methods. Yeah, they got to use some. Interdisciplinary collaboration. You have to go do everything, or you're doing nothing. Technology, industrial applications, new materials and resources, energy exploration, public perception about education. Yes. Science communication, yes, we have to communicate. Educational overhaul, yes. Philosophical existential questions, absolutely. Humanity's place in the universe, of course. Reevaluations of life's limits. Giants are, I just showed you. And then it says, well, nobody will look at this information, so who cares? But at least this is, the Chinese are paying. Everybody except from America. American, academic institution is an absolute disgrace. They won't engage. They know this stuff is right. And I know that for a fact. I'm not guessing about that. They understand it. They just trying to ease themselves into it somehow, not make themselves look like idiots. But the more they do it, the more idiotic they are. And the worse they have become for society. And I've been railing against them for 15 years, and I'm never going to stop, because they are the problem, is academia. We need to be, if you can't accept reality, go someplace else. Don't try to teach people to be resistant to reality. And that's what they do. They say, if you don't say exactly what we tell you, we're going to keep your money, and we won't give you that piece of paper that says you passed. We'll give you one that says you're an idiot, that you failed, because you wouldn't say what we told you to say. That's not education. None of the stuff that I'm talking about will be allowed to be spoken about. Even the light research that we did, Rodney Warren came up with a fabulous way of dividing light. It was just an accident, but that's the way science advances, by accident. Trust me. It's not because somebody's really doing the work. They just don't seem to do it. They pick up on somebody else's accident, and then they embellish it and make us looking for funding for it. That's what's happened. Anyway, that's my rant again for today. But I'm going to leave it. I love you all, and I just want you to have reality, and then you can decide what you want to do with it, because reality comes with a freedom of choice. You take it or leave it. You think I'm an idiot for showing you this? Well, I don't think I am. And if you look at it, I don't think you're going to think I am. You know, right off the bat, it's instantaneous. The guy's out of his mind. Well, yes. You would say that because it's so far from. I had another guy say, nobody's ever going to listen to you because you're so far out of the box. I said, well, so what? If I got the reality and it's the truth, he says, doesn't matter. Nobody will listen because you're not in the box. You're not in the box with everybody else. I said, I don't want to be in a box with everybody else. I want to be in my own box of reality. And trust me, I'm almost alone. You know, if you're here, hopefully you're on board with reality, and you quite likely are. But there's so few people here that, you know, humanity's a pretty big audience. And I got like a bazillionth of a percent of it. And if people don't start to pay attention, we're just going to keep doing this and funding idiots. I'm telling you, it's starting to get very depressing, the reaction of mainstream. Now, I'm hoping Trump and Musk and all those can deal with reality. I haven't seen it so far. I've been pushing and screaming, and I know they're listening. I know everybody's hearing this. They have to be. They can't possibly be missing this over the course of everybody. I know people are starting to talk about it. For a while there, you couldn't talk about it. Otherwise, somebody would slap you and say, shut up, you're an idiot. Well, now they're saying, oh, come on. And then now they're going to say, wow, this makes sense. And then they're going to say, how did we ever miss this? And we're almost at that stage right now. So come along to reality, please. We have to have this, because not only in this life, this extends to an afterlife as well. Everything you've been taught about this is in question now. We have to start anew. All right, and anyway, I'm going to leave that for another day. But I'm coming back to all of this and Mount Spurr, and we're going to look at all the topography and what makes up these different areas on Earth. We have to you got to look. You got to come up close and look and see, what is this? What's Mount Spurr doing? What's this? What's this and what's this? And how does it feed down into the Cook Inlet? Right over here is Anchorage. I was up here for a couple of years long ago. And it's a nice place, really. But that's pretty close. If that's as explosive as it might be, I'd be prepared. All right, I love you all. We'll talk again soon.